Good
Good
morning,
morning,
children.
sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, so today
Good
we will
morning.
discuss the point. Yeah, a legend of the past, a legend of the Northland, a legend of the Northland that we will discuss. Okay, and this is about a poem. This is the poem about Saint Peter. Okay, so one important character in the poem is Saint Peter, and then a lady from the Northland.
Sir,
Okay, yes, yes, Anamika, yes.
sir, chapter 5,
Uh,
the
po-
snake
uh,
and the mirror.
Poem. It's a poem five, a legend of the Northland.
Sir, but we do not complete the chapter number 5, the snake and the mirror.
No problem.
Sir, but that chapter was not coming in the half yearly exam.
Yeah, okay, that's why. A truly beautiful mind we have discussed the
Yes, sir.
Lake Isle of Innisfree that is not there in, okay, as per the revised syllabus. Okay, and you check this also. So a legend of the Northland that we have to discuss today. Hai na? This is
Okay,
given in
sir.
the half yearly syllabus or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, therefore that's why we are
Okay, sir.
discussing it.
Thank
Hai
you.
na? So the poem is about Saint Peter. Saint Peter was a religious leader, and one day Saint Peter went there to Northland. Saint Peter, he used to travel from one place to another place. He used to provide his religious discourse, religious teaching to people, and then he used to move from one place to another place. Okay. Now, in his course of journey, Saint Peter went to Northland. In Northland, he visited one lady's house. Okay, and due to continuous journey, he was hungry, so he demanded from the lady some food. Okay, and the lady, while providing food, she thought whenever she tried to offer a piece of cake to Saint Peter, that piece of cake seemed to the lady very large. Okay, so she made a number of attempts. She started with a very small piece of cake. It seemed very large to her. Then again she made an attempt. Okay, and she reduced the size. She tried to provide aid to Saint Peter. Again, that piece of cake seemed to the lady very large. Again, she reduced the size. Okay, so you understood, children, that by the time, all the time when she thought to provide the piece of cake to Saint Peter, the size of the cake seemed to the lady very large, though it was very, very small. And at the end, it was a very small size, just like chips she provided to Saint Peter. Now, due to this, Saint Peter became very much annoyed. Saint Peter became very much annoyed, became very angry, and being annoyed, being angry, Saint Peter, who was having some special powers, he turned the lady into a bird. Okay, and he said that the lady doesn't deserve to be in human form. Okay, so he turned the lady into a bird, and he said that now you should be made compelled to struggle for your food every successive day. Every successive day, you should travel here and there, and you should struggle hard for your food. Okay, so this is the story, children. This is the theme of the poem. You have understood or not? Saint
Yes, sir.
Peter,
Understood.
Saint Peter is the key character. Then there is a lady from Northland. Saint Peter is a religious teacher. He used to travel all over the world, and he used to provide religious lectures, religious teachings. He came across to a household, a lady household from Northland. He demanded for some food item. The lady provided, the lady thought to provide a piece of cake, but all the time when she decided to provide the piece of cake to Saint Peter, the size seemed to the lady, the size of the cake seemed very large, and in this process she kept on reducing the size of the cake, and at the end very small size of the cake was provided to Saint Peter. Saint Peter became very much annoyed, very much angry, and turned the lady into a bird, saying that she didn't deserve to be in human form, to dwell in human form. She should be punished, and she was turned into a bird. Okay, so that she will also struggle hard every day to make a living, okay, to get food. This is the story, and I have already mentioned a legend of the Northland. That is, this is an unrealistic story of the past, that of Northland. It is a story from Northland. Okay, so this goes like this. The poem goes like this, children. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. Okay, it is a description of the place is provided, that away, away in the Northland, far away there in the Northland, the hours of the day are few. Day remains very small. Day hours are very less, and the nights are so long in winter. Night hours are so long, and day hours are very very limited. Okay, that they cannot sleep them through. Okay, so they are not able to sleep all the night. Where they harness the swift reindeer, and there they harness the swift reindeer. Okay, harness means a restraint or a support. So this is used for the cart, that is the sledges. To the sledges when it snows, when it is the time of the snow, at that time they harness sledges to reindeer, and the children look like bear's cubs, and their children looks like bear. Okay, in their funny furry clothes made up with fur, they look like that. They look as if they are the cubs of bear. Okay, so this is a tale, this is a story about Northland. Northland, where it is very far away place. It is a place which very often remains covered with snow. Very often there remains a winter, and days are of very short time. Nights they are prolonged. Okay, at this place people, they used to harness sledges to the reindeer. The children of the people of this place, they look like bear cubs. Okay, in their funny and clothes made up with fur. Why they used to wear clothes of fur? Because it is a place where there remains a winter season. So in order to protect themselves from cold, they used to wear it. Okay, so likewise, you have understood it or not so far what we have discussed?
Yes.
Understood?
Okay,
Yes.
then they tell them a curious story. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it's true. The people of this place, they tell a very interesting story. I don't know whether this story is true or false, but these people, they used to tell. And yet you may learn a lesson. But yes, of course, you may learn a lesson from this story. If I tell the tale to you, if I tell this story, this tale to you, You might learn a lesson from this. Okay, once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below, it is the tale, it is the story of that time when the good Saint Peter, he used to live there below and walked about it, preaching just as he did, you know. Saint Peter, a very good person, he used to live below. Northland was a place at a great height. Okay, so Saint Peter, the good person, he used to go places to places in order to preach, in order to give religious lectures, in order to give religious discourse. Okay, so preaching, is it clear to you? To give a sermon, preaching, to give a sermon, that is religious discourse. Okay, to give a religious lecture, he used to go from place to place. Lived in the world below and walked about it, preaching just as he did, you know. So why Saint Peter used to travel from place to place? In order to give religious lectures, in order to give religious teachings. He used to go, he used to visit place to place. Okay, so this also I hope you have understood. Then he came to, so in course of his journey to the Northland, he came to the door of a cottage. He came to the door of a cottage. In traveling round the earth, he was traveling round the earth. What does it mean, traveling round the earth? Means he was traveling all over the world. Okay.
Visiting place to place.
Yes, very good, Aditya. He was traveling places to places, in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes. A little woman he found, and the lady was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. Hearth means fireplace. Okay, so she was baking the cakes there at the fireplace, and Saint Peter came across this lady. He came to the door of a cottage, he came to the door of a house, in traveling round the earth. Okay, where a little woman was making cakes, a lady was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. The lady was baking them there at the fireplace, and being faint with fasting. Now Saint Peter, he was faint, he became very weak. Okay, he was just feeling as going to be unconscious due to fasting. Okay, he was a saint, he used to travel from place to place. Sometime he used to get food, sometime he was not getting. So, and being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, the day was almost over, and he was hungry. He asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. He asked the lady, he requested the lady to provide him a single piece of cake from her cakes. Okay. So she made a very little cake. As Saint Peter asked for a piece of cake from the lady, so what was the reaction of the lady? So she made a very little cake. She made a very little cake for Saint Peter. But as it baking lay, she looked at it. But when she kept it for baking, it looked the lady and thought it seemed. She looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. She kept it for baking, and when she looked at it, she found its size too large, and she thought, she was a very greedy lady. She thought that the cake is quite big, and she should not give a cake of that size to Saint Peter. Too large to give away. It's too large, and she should not give a cake of that size to a person, to a okay. So therefore she needed another, and still a smaller one. And She needed another one, and that of a very small size. But it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. But this piece of cake also looked the lady very large. This piece of cake also looked her of similar size as that of the previous one, and she was not at all willing to give this piece of cake to Saint Peter. Okay, you have understood? It's very simple, very easily you can understand. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough, scrap a piece. She took a very small size piece, that of dough, and rolled it flat. She rolled and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer. As a wafer, she baked it. But she could not part with that. But she was not able to part with that also. She was not able to give that very small size of piece to Saint Peter. For she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself. When I eat my cakes myself, they seems very small to me, are yet too large to give away. But when I give them to anyone, they are very large. So she put them on the shelf. She put them there in her containers. Then good Saint Peter grew angry. Good Saint Peter grew angry. Saint Peter became very angry, for he was hungry and faint. He was hungry. He was feeling unconsciousness due to hunger. And surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. She was enough to provoke a saint. Provoke means to cause something, to make someone angry. Provoke, to cause someone to become annoyed or angry. Okay, so the lady made Saint Peter provoked. She made Saint Peter very angry. And he said, you are far, okay. And he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form. You are not at all suitable to be there in the human form. You are not at all suitable to dwell there in human form. Because, why? Because you are very selfish and you are not supposed to be there in human form. To have both food and shelter, you should not be entitled to get food and shelter, to be there in human form. Okay, and fire to keep you warm. You are not supposed to enjoy all these amenities of life which a human being is supposed to. Why you are not supposed to get all these luxuries, all these basic requirements of life? Because you are a very selfish creature. You should not get food to eat, you should not get shelter, you should not get fire to warm you, as that was a very cold place. Okay, so you are selfish, you should not be there in the human form. Now you shall build as the birds do. And Saint Peter cursed the lady that now you will be built as the birds. Okay, and shall get your scanty food. You will get your scanty food. Okay, so you will get your scanty food very small in size. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food, very small size food you will get, by boring and boring and boring. And how you will get it? By boring and boring and boring. Boring means to make a hole. So you have to make a hole there in the wood, and then whatever the small amount of food you will get, on the basis of that you have to survive. Boring means a pit or hole. So all day in the hard dry wood, all day in the hard dry wood, you have to bore, you have to make a hole, and then you have to get some very scanty amount of food for yourself. Then up she went through the chimney, and as Saint Peter said these words, the lady went up there through the chimney. Okay, never speaking a word. She never spoke a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker. And what came out from the chimney? The lady went through the chimney, but what came out from out of the chimney came a woodpecker. So you understood, children, the lady was turned into what? The lady was turned into,
Woodpecker.
yes, she was turned into woodpecker. And why she was turned? Because Saint Peter cursed her. Why? Because the lady was very selfish. Saint Peter demanded for a very for a single piece of cake, but lady was not willing to provide even a very small size of a cake to Saint Peter. So Saint Peter became very annoyed, and he cursed the lady that you do not deserve to be there in human form. Okay, you should be made such a creature who has to struggle very hard for its food. And therefore, the lady was turned into a woodpecker. She had a scarlet cap on her head. And now the lady had a scarlet cap. Scarlet means a bright red color. A bright red color. If you see the woodpecker, you will find that it is having a scarlet, that seems such kind of color, which seems as a scarlet cap. So she had a scarlet cap on her head. The woodpecker has such kind of sign. So she had a scarlet cap on her head. Scarlet means a red bright color, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. All the rest of the clothes were burned, only she had a scarlet cap, and that scarlet cap at present also the bird is having. At that time the lady was having a scarlet cap, so she was left with that scarlet cap, and all the other clothes they were burnt. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood. They have seen the lady there in the wood, in the forest, where she lives in the trees till this very day. This lady lives there in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. All the time, the lady is doing only single task, and that is boring and boring there in the wood. Okay. So all of you have understood it or not?
Yes, sir, understood.
The story is very simple. Okay, the
Yes.
poem is very simple to understand. So I hope all of you have understood it. Then we will discuss regarding the question answers of the poem. Okay. So yeah. So which country or countries do you think the Northland refers to? Yes. Yes, Anamika, you have raised your hand.
Sir,
Which,
Sweden, Norway, and Denmark.
okay. So it you can say it refers to the country which are there in the northern hemisphere. Okay. Then the Northland refers to a country or a group of countries which are there, which are situated there in the northern hemisphere. Okay, and the location also you can tell. Then what did Saint Peter ask the old lady for? What did Saint Peter ask the lady for? Saint Peter, yes, who will tell? Anusa. Vedika, you tell. Anusa all the time responding. Anamika also responding. Okay. So, Vedika, Aditya also responding. No, Aditya. Vedika Rawat, you tell. Vedika, you tell the answer. What did Saint Peter ask the lady for? Rohit Meena, you tell the answer. Rohit, it's very simple. If you have paid your attention there in the class, you will be able to answer. Mansi has also raised her hand. Rohit Meena, are you there? Rohit?
Yes, sir.
So you tell the answer. Don't hesitate. Rohit, you will be able to tell what Saint Peter asked for. What Saint Peter asked for from the lady. Yes, Rohit. A piece of Rohit.
So can I tell?
Just wait, Aditya. You should be able to answer, children. Pay attention there in the class. Be active listeners. Okay, so that you can answer. If you are taking the class, you should learn something from that. If you are not able to answer such a simple question, then it means that you are not paying any attention there in the class. Yes, Rachit Mishra.
Saint Peter asked for a piece of cake.
Very simple. I have provided a hint to you.
Sir, small piece of cake.
Yes, Vedika, but you should have
Sir,
answered
small
when it was.
piece of cake.
Yes, Pakhare,
Sir,
Rachit,
I
and
am active.
Vikas also raised his hand to answer. It's always good, children. You should remain ready to provide your response. You should not feel any kind of hesitation. Your answer may be right, your answer may be
Yes, sir.
wrong, but you should provide your response. Okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yes, we have discussed this. What did Saint Peter ask the lady for? Saint Peter asked for a piece of cake, a small piece of cake, a single piece of cake, actually, a single piece of cake. What was the lady's reaction? What was the lady's reaction? Anamika, Anusa, what about others? What was the lady's reaction? Was the lady happy to provide? Was the lady willing to provide?
No.
No, she
No,
was
sir.
not
No,
willing
sir.
to provide. If she was not willing to provide the piece of cake,
Because
single piece of cake, then what was her thinking?
That every cake was big, so she wanted to put the cakes in the shelf.
Yes,
Yes,
She
sir.
was very greedy and selfish.
every cake she
She was very
wanted to
selfish.
provide, every cake she decided to provide to Saint Peter seemed to her of a significant size, of a good size, of large size, and
because it seemed
she thought that such a size of cake she should not provide to Saint
Peter.
Peter, and at the end she made it of a very small size,
One piece.
just a wafer. But then also her heart was not willing to provide at least that cake of very small size. Her heart was not willing to provide
Yes, sir.
even the smallest size cake to Saint Peter. Okay, children, all of you have understood.
Yes, sir.
What about
Yes,
others?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, so one or two line you can say, no, the lady was not at all willing to provide any piece of cake to Saint Peter. Whenever she decided to provide a cake to Saint Peter, it seemed to her that of a large size, a significant size. Okay, and every time she decided to
Yes,
reduce
sir.
the size, but at last when it became that of a very small size, at that time also the piece of cake seemed to her
Sir, he don't want to
that
give the
of
cake.
very large size. Okay, and she decided not to give any piece of cake. How did he punish her? How did he punish her?
He make a
He was
bird.
turned into a woodpecker by a St. Peter's curse.
Yes, so he turned the lady into a woodpecker. He turned the lady into a woodpecker so that she could struggle every day to get even a very small size of food. She was compelled to work hard by boring and boring
Yes, sir.
the trees
The
there in
bark
the
of the tree.
forest. Okay, so this I hope you will be able to do. Then how does the woodpecker get her
The woodpecker gets its food by boring holes into hard and dry woods of trees.
Yeah, yes. By boring hard and dry wood of
Yes, sir.
trees. By boring hard and dry wood. Okay, there in the forest.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Disita, Raj, you are not responding at all. Disita.
Yes, sir.
Then, do you think the old lady would have been so ungenerous if she had known who Saint Peter really was? What would she have done then? Do you
Then
think
also
that the old lady
then
would have?
also she was jealous.
Yes, Shreyas, repeat it.
Sir, then also she was jealous.
Okay, so Shreyas' response is then also she would have not provided any piece of food to Saint Peter if she
So
would
she
have.
was selfish and she didn't want it to give it to Peter.
So this is one response. Yeah, Disita, repeat. What's your version?
So she was so selfish that she didn't want it to give it to Peter.
This is Disita's version is also the same. She was
Sir, I
so
can.
selfish. She was not having that kind heart which could
Sir,
help
I think
anyone.
that
So
she
if
would give the cakes to Saint Peter to fulfill her desires because she was
yes,
greedy.
this is another response from Aditya Nissal that she was a cunning lady. Had she known that the person was Saint Peter, so in desire of getting some blessings, she might have given. Okay, that what Aditya want to say. Okay, so likewise also
Sir, what
likewise
is the
also you
correct
should
answer?
give. So this is you have to provide your response with ample arguments. What do you think? Okay, so likewise it could differ from person to person.
Sir, what is
Okay,
the correct answer?
you see, child, the question is, do you think that the old lady would have been so ungenerous if she had? So
She
what do
did.
you think? What do you think? That answer you have to
She
provide,
did.
but you should give ample arguments in support of your answer. Shreyas, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
So you can say that had she known, one argument as in Aditya's response, that had she known that he was Saint Peter, she would have helped. Why she would have helped? For her own personal motive. She might have thought that he is a
Yes, sir.
very renowned
He is a
saint
selfish.
and I will be blessed by the saint. Okay, so for her selfish motives, might be possible she would have given. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Or you can say that the
Very much
lady
clear.
was that much greedy that it was of no importance for her that he was a Saint Peter or anyone else. She was greedy and she was not at all such a kind of lady who could give anything to anyone. Okay, children?
Okay, sir.
Then the next,
Okay, sir.
children, it is this a true story? Which
No,
part
sir.
of this poem do you
No,
feel?
sir. It is
No,
not a
sir.
true.
This is not a
No,
true
not a
story,
true
but it is a
story.
moral.
Yeah, so
Moral.
yeah, it's not a true story. I think it's not a true story. It's a moral story, and it is to impart a moral lesson. And what is the lesson? Do good,
We
get
should
good.
give
If
To be
food.
you will,
generous and not to
We
be
should
greedy.
give
Good, you will
yeah,
get
to
good.
the hungry people.
yeah,
We
we
should
should
give
help
food to hungry
to
people.
the people who are in need.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Give
and
help
that
and
is,
take help.
yeah, as a human, we should help. Then what is a legend? A legend is an old traditional story which passes from one generation to another generation. It is an old
Yes,
traditional
sir.
story that is passed from one generation to another generation. The poem A Legend of the Northland is a ballad. And what is a ballad? A ballad is a literary form, children, okay, which is in the form of a story. Ballad, when originated, was in verbal form, okay, and at the later stage it acquired the written form, okay. So it was a literature that was transferred from generation to generation in verbal form. All of you have understood, and it
Yes,
remains,
sir.
a ballad remains there in the form of a story. It remains there in the form of a story. So it is a story that is passed from generations to generations. Okay. So why is this poem called a legend?
Sir, I think this story was a legend because of the lesson given in the story.
Yeah,
Sir, it is
it is.
because
It is.
the it is based on the helping. So,
Because of the moral of the story. Because of the moral.
sir, the
Yeah,
theme
because
is
So,
of the
like that
moral,
sir,
only.
I
because
can tell
of the
answer.
lesson, because of the lesson, it is.
Sir, I can tell answer.
So you just listen. The time is getting up. The poem A Legend of the Northland. Okay, because it is providing a great lesson, a great moral. Okay, then write the story of A Legend of Northland in about 10 sentences. I hope you will be able to.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
then
Yes,
next,
sir.
children,
Yes, sir.
yeah, let's look at the words at the end of the second and the fourth lines. Okay, likewise, snow,
Earth.
clothes.
Sir,
Okay,
earth,
children.
earth.
So the time is getting up, children. You do all these questions. Okay, you will be
Yes,
able
sir.
to do. Okay,
Yes,
and
sir.
in the next class we will start the next lesson. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
yeah, thank you. The class comes to an end here.
Thank you. So.